Admiral Jack Stone stood on the bridge of the orbital defense platform high above Earth. He watched the stars through the wide windows, just like he did every morning for the past 3 years. Today felt different, though. The radio was buzzing, with reports from the outer system that made his stomach tight with worry. "Sir, we have confirmation," said Lieutenant Mary Johnson as she turned from her station. "Captain Cross was right. They're real, and they're big." Jack nodded slowly. 3 days ago, Captain Ryan Cross had sent an emergency message from his exploration ship near Neptune. He claimed to have spotted massive alien vessels at the edge of the solar system. At first, nobody believed him. Space was vast and empty. Earth had been alone for so long that most people forgot to look up at the night sky. But now the deep space sensors confirmed it. 12 enormous ships hung in the darkness beyond Pluto, each one the size of a small city. They had appeared without warning and sat perfectly still, as if waiting for something. "Get me Ambassador Kane on the line," Jack ordered, "and patch me through to President Hayes. We need to activate first contact protocols." Lisa Kane had trained her whole life for this moment. As Earth's top diplomat, she had studied every possible scenario for meeting alien life. She had read every science fiction book and watched every movie about first contact. But none of that prepared her for the reality of walking into the Unity space station's main conference room to meet beings from another world. The alien delegation had arrived in a smaller ship just hours after Earth sent its response to their initial greeting. They seemed eager to talk, which Lisa hoped was a good sign. She wore her best diplomatic uniform and carried a briefcase full of translation devices and peace offerings. The conference room was cold and sterile, with white walls and a long metal table. Lisa sat on one side with her team of scientists and translators. Across from her sat 3 beings that looked almost human but not quite right. They were tall and thin with pale gray skin and large dark eyes. They wore flowing robes that seemed to shift color in the light. The leader introduced himself as High Curator Veltar. His voice was soft and musical, but something about it made Lisa's skin crawl. He spoke perfect English, which surprised everyone in the room. "We have been watching your species for some time," Veltar said with what might have been a smile. "Your development has been most interesting. We represent the hegemony, a great alliance of worlds that spans this entire section of the galaxy." Lisa leaned forward in her chair. "We're honored to meet you. Earth welcomes peaceful contact with other civilizations." "Peace, yes," Veltar replied. "That is exactly what we offer. The hegemony brings peace to all worlds we encounter. We have done so for over 2,000 of your years." One of Lisa's advisors, Dr. Karen White, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Something about the way Veltar spoke made her think of a spider talking to a fly. She had spent years studying animal behavior and knew predator speech when she heard it. Veltar reached into his robes and pulled out a thin device that projected a holographic map of the local galaxy. Thousands of star systems glowed with soft, blue light. "All of these worlds are part of our great alliance," he said proudly. "Each one enjoys the benefits of hegemony membership. No war, no conflict, no suffering." "That's impressive," Lisa said carefully. "How exactly does this alliance work?" "Simple integration process," Veltar explained. "Each world contributes what it can to the greater good. Some provide raw materials, others offer unique biological resources or specialized knowledge. In return, they receive protection and guidance from more advanced civilizations." Lisa noticed that Veltar never used words like freedom or choice. She also noticed that all those blue dots on the map looked identical, as if they had been standardized somehow. Dr. White spoke up. "What about worlds that prefer to remain independent?" Veltar's large eyes fixed on her with an expression that was definitely not friendly. "Independence is an illusion, Doctor. In a dangerous galaxy, only unity provides true safety. Fortunately, most species quickly recognize the benefits of joining our alliance once we explain the alternatives." The room fell silent. Lisa felt her diplomatic training kick in as she tried to keep her face neutral. "And what exactly are those alternatives?" "Well, Veltar said with that unsettling smile. Isolation leads to stagnation. Stagnation leads to vulnerability. Vulnerable worlds often face unfortunate accidents, asteroid strikes, solar flares, equipment failures. Such tragedies could easily be prevented with proper hegemony guidance. Lisa's blood ran cold. The alien was describing protection racket tactics on a galactic scale. She glanced at her team and saw the same realization in their eyes. Veltar activated another hologram showing Earth's solar system. Your world sits on a particularly valuable hyperspace junction. Ships traveling between the Rigel and Centauri sectors must pass through this system to maintain efficient trade routes. The hegemony requires guaranteed passage rights. I see, Lisa said slowly. And if Earth were to refuse? Why would you refuse? Veltar asked, tilting his head like a confused bird. Integration offers so many benefits. Your people would no longer need to worry about making difficult decisions. Hegemony guidance would ensure optimal resource allocation and population management. Many species find great peace in surrendering such burdens. Dr. White felt sick to her stomach. She thought about her daughter back on Earth, playing in the park without a care in the world. The idea of alien overseers deciding what was optimal for human children made her hands shake with anger. Lisa stood up from the table. Hi, Curator Veltar. I thank you for this information. Earth will need time to consider your proposal. Of course, Veltar replied smoothly. You have 30 standard cycles to prepare for integration. We will return then to begin the process. I do hope your leaders will make the wise choice. After the aliens left, Lisa sat alone in the conference room for a long time. She thought about those thousands of blue dots on the galactic map, each one representing a world that had lost its freedom. She thought about the way Veltar spoke about human beings like livestock to be managed. Finally, she activated her communication device and called President Robert Hayes directly. Mr. President, she said when his face appeared on the screen, we have a problem. 2 days later, President Hayes stood before the United Earth Council in Geneva. Representatives from every nation sat in the Great Assembly Hall, their faces grim as they listened to the recording of the alien meeting. The choice before us is simple, Hayes said as the recording ended. We can submit to alien rule and lose everything that makes us human, or we can stand up and fight for our freedom. The Chinese representative raised his hand. Mr. President, their technology is clearly superior to ours. What chance do we have against a galactic empire? Hayes smiled grimly. The same chance our ancestors had when they fought against kings and tyrants throughout history. The same chance that free people have always had when faced with bullies and oppressors. He walked to the great podium at the center of the hall. I hereby declare that Earth space is a no-passage zone. Any hegemony vessel attempting to use our system for transit will be turned back or destroyed. We will not bow down to aliens just as we have never bowed down to human tyrants. The vote was unanimous. Earth would stand alone against the stars if necessary. Far above the planet, Admiral, Stone watched the alien ships through his telescope. They had moved closer during the negotiations, obviously expecting easy compliance. Now they would learn that humanity did not give up without a fight. He activated the general alarm throughout the solar system. All stations, this is Earth Command. Condition Red is now in effect. Prepare for hostile contact. The war for human freedom was about to begin. Colonel Amy Foster stood in the secret command center buried deep inside Ceres, the largest asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. Around her, dozens of technicians worked at glowing screens while the sound of machinery hummed through the rock walls. This place had been built in secret over the past 20 years, hidden from everyone except the highest levels of Earth's government. How many ships do we have ready? Amy asked her chief engineer, Lieutenant Tony Clark. Tony checked his tablet and frowned. 47 combat vessels completed, ma'am. Another 63 in various stages of construction. The shipyards have been working around the clock since the president's announcement. Amy nodded. It wasn't nearly enough to fight a galactic empire, but it was a start. Earth had been preparing for this day longer than most people realized. When the first radio signals from space had been detected decades ago, smart leaders had begun planning for the possibility that not all aliens would be friendly. What about the stealth ships? She asked. Captain Steve Miller's squadron is ready for deployment. 12 ships equipped with the new cloaking technology. They're small and fast, perfect for hit-and-run attacks. Amy smiled grimly. The hegemony expected Earth to either surrender quietly or mount a desperate last stand. They probably never considered that humans might actually have a plan. Meanwhile, Captain Steve Miller floated in the cockpit of his stealth fighter somewhere in the outer solar system. His ship was completely invisible to normal sensors, wrapped in a field that bent light and radio waves around it like water flowing around a stone. He had been watching a hegemony scout ship for the past 6 hours, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Ghost leader to Ghost Squadron," he whispered into his radio. "Target is moving into position. Remember, we want them scared, not dead. Hit their engines and communication array, then get out fast." "Copy that, Ghost leader," came the replies from his 11 wingmen, all floating silently in the darkness around him. The alien scout ship was sleek and silver, about the size of an Earth destroyer. It moved slowly through space, scanning asteroids and taking measurements. Steve could see the aliens inside through his enhanced sensors. They looked bored and overconfident, probably thinking that primitive humans posed no threat. "All units, attack now," Steve ordered. 12 invisible ships opened fire at once. Bright blue energy beams lanced out from nowhere, striking the scout ship's engines and communication dish. The alien vessel spun wildly as its power systems failed, emergency lights flashing along its hull. Before the aliens could even figure out what hit them, the human ships were gone, fading back into invisibility as they raced away through the asteroid field. Steve allowed himself a small smile. The hegemony had just learned that Earth could bite back. Dr. Nicole Davis worked frantically in her laboratory on Luna, Earth's moon. Scattered across her workbenches were pieces of alien technology recovered from crashed hegemony probes and the recent attack on the scout ship. She had been reverse engineering alien equipment for the past week, trying to understand how their technology worked. "Fascinating," she muttered as she examined a piece of alien computer hardware. "Their systems are incredibly advanced, but they're also completely standardized. Every component is identical across all their ships." Her assistant, Dr. Mike Torres, looked up from his own workstation. "Is that good or bad for us?" "Both," Nicole replied. "Good because once we crack their systems, we can probably hack into any of their ships. Bad because it means they have massive industrial capacity to produce identical equipment across an entire galaxy." She held up a small alien device that pulsed with soft light. "But here's the interesting part. Their technology is designed for efficiency and control, not innovation. Everything is built to do exactly what it's supposed to do, nothing more. Our human technology is messier and less efficient, but it's also more adaptable." Mike nodded thoughtfully. "So we might be able to outthink them, even if we can't outgun them?" "Exactly. Their empire has been successful for so long that they've stopped expecting surprises. We might be able to give them a few." Lieutenant Peter Clark led his squadron of fighters through the outer edge of the solar system, hunting for more hegemony scouts. Intelligence reports suggested that the aliens had been mapping Earth's defenses for months, possibly years. It was time to send them a message that the mapping phase was over. "Cobra leader, this is Cobra 3, came a voice over his radio. "I've got something big on sensors, bearing 270. Peter adjusted his course and activated his long-range scanners. There, hanging in space near a small asteroid, was a hegemony logistics station. It looked like a metal spider with long arms extending in all directions, probably used to resupply scout ships and gather intelligence. "Well, well," Peter said quietly. "Looks like we found their forward supply base." He studied the station through his tactical display. It was lightly defended, with only a few automated weapon platforms visible. The aliens probably never expected humans to venture this far from Earth. "All Cobra units, form up for attack. We're going to take that station intact if possible. Command wants prisoners and intelligence data." The attack was swift and brutal. Human fighters swarmed around the alien station like angry hornets, disabling its weapons and communications before it could call for help. Peter led a boarding party through an airlock and into the station's interior. The inside of the alien base was a maze of corridors and chambers filled with strange equipment. Peter's team moved carefully through the halls, their weapons ready for trouble. They found the first aliens in what looked like a control room, 3 of the pale gray beings hunched over glowing screens. The aliens surrendered immediately when they saw the humans, raising their hands and speaking in rapid, frightened voices. Peter activated his translation device and listened as the machine converted their words into English. "Please do not harm us," one alien said. "We are only observers. We have no weapons." Peter stepped forward, keeping his rifle pointed at the aliens. "What is this place? What are you doing in our solar system?" "Mapping station," the alien replied quickly. "We measure defensive positions and resource concentrations. Standard procedure before integration." "Integration?" Peter asked. "You mean invasion?" The alien looked confused. "No invasion necessary. Hegemony brings peace through voluntary joining. Your species will understand benefits once War Curator HFY arrives with main fleet." Peter felt cold fear run down his spine. "War Curator? How big is this main fleet?" "Very large," the alien said proudly. 1,000 ships of the line. War Curator HFY has never failed to bring peace to resistant species. Your world will join hegemony soon." Peter and his team spent the next hour gathering intelligence from the station's computers. What they found made their blood run cold. The hegemony had detailed maps of every major city on Earth, lists of important political and military leaders, and even genetic samples from various human populations. But the most disturbing discovery was in the medical files. The aliens had been studying not just Earth's defenses but also human biology. They had plans for genetic modifications that would make humans more compliant and productive as members of the hegemony. "They're not just planning to conquer us," Peter told his radio operator. "They're planning to change us into something else entirely." Back on Earth, President Hayes received Peter's report in his secure bunker beneath the White House. The news about the incoming fleet was bad enough, but learning about the aliens' plans for genetic modification made him sick to his stomach. Activated the emergency communication system that connected him directly to every military commander in the solar system. Admiral Stone's face appeared on the main screen, along with Colonel Foster and Captain Miller. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hayes said grimly, "we've just learned that the aliens are planning to do more than just conquer us. They want to turn us into something we're not. As of right now, Earth is officially at war with the hegemony." Admiral Stone nodded from his orbital platform. "Mr. President, we're tracking massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system. It looks like their main fleet is already on the way." Hayes stood up and walked to the large window that showed the Earth's surface far below. Somewhere up there, his children were sleeping peacefully in their beds, unaware that alien warships were coming to destroy everything they held dear. "Admiral, broadcast this message on all frequencies," Hayes said. "This is Earth Control. Any hegemony vessel entering our solar system will be considered hostile and will be fired upon immediately. We do not surrender. We do not submit. We will fight for our freedom until the last human draws breath." The message went out across space, carried by powerful transmitters to every corner of the solar system. Within hours, it would reach the approaching alien fleet and their commander, War Curator HFY. The aliens were about to learn that humans were not like the other species they had conquered. Earth would not go quietly into slavery. The real war was about to begin. The alarm bells rang throughout the Neptune defense station as Captain Ryan Cross watched the massive alien fleet drop out of hyperspace. 1,000 ships stretched across the darkness like a plague of metal locusts, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. War Curator HFY had arrived. "All units, this is Neptune Command." Ryan spoke into his radio with a steady voice that hid his fear. "Enemy fleet detected at maximum range. Begin falling back to prepared positions. Make every shot count." The first phase of the battle began as human fighters launched from hidden bases throughout the outer solar system. They were outnumbered 100 to 1, but they had advantages the aliens didn't expect. Every human pilot knew these asteroid fields like their own backyard, and their ships were built for speed and stealth rather than brute force. Ryan's own ship, the Defiant, led a squadron of destroyers in a desperate holding action near Neptune's largest moon. The alien ships moved forward in perfect formation, their weapons blazing with deadly energy beams. But the humans didn't fight like the hegemony expected. Instead of standing and trading shots, they hit and ran, using the gas giants' rings as cover. "Go, Squadron, this is Neptune Command," Ryan called to Captain Steve Miller's stealth fighters. "We need you to take out their forward scouts. We can't let them get accurate targeting data on our main defenses." "Copy that, Neptune," Steve's voice crackled back through the static. "We're already on it." Invisible death struck the alien fleet from all directions. Steve's fighters appeared from nowhere, destroyed their targets, and vanished again before the hegemony ships could respond. The aliens had never faced an enemy they couldn't see, and their confusion was obvious as they fired wildly into empty space. But for every alien ship destroyed, 10 more took its place. The human forces were forced to fall back toward Jupiter, leaving behind burning wreckage and too many good friends. Meanwhile, deep inside Jupiter's largest moon, engineer Tom Bradley worked frantically to complete humanity's secret weapon. The gravity manipulation devices had been under construction for 15 years, hidden from everyone except the highest levels of government. Now it was time to see if they actually worked. "Power levels are at 90%. His assistant Sarah Kim reported from her control station. "All gravity field generators are online and ready." Tom wiped sweat from his forehead as he made final adjustments to the massive machine that filled the underground chamber. The device looked like a cross between a particle accelerator and a pipe organ, with thousands of cables and tubes feeding into a central core that hummed with barely contained energy. "This better work," Tom muttered, "because if it doesn't, we're all going to be slaves or dead within the week." The plan was insane, but it was also brilliant. Jupiter and Saturn were gas giants with incredible gravitational fields. If Tom's machines could manipulate those fields, they could turn the planets themselves into weapons. Any ship trying to use hyperspace near the gas giants would be torn apart by artificial gravity storms. "Jupiter control to all units," Tom announced over the fleet communication system. "The mousetrap is ready. Lead them into the killing zone." Captain Cross received the message as his battered squadron retreated past Jupiter's outer moons. Behind him, the alien fleet pressed forward, eager to finish off the stubborn humans. War Curator Zexhai had grown tired of playing games with primitives. "All ships maintain current course," Cross ordered his pilots. "Draw them in close, don't let them suspect anything unusual." The alien fleet followed the retreating humans deeper into Jupiter's gravity well, their sensors focused on the human ships ahead. They never noticed the strange energy readings coming from the planet's core, or the way space itself seemed to shimmer around the gas giant's equator. Tom Bradley watched the tactical display in his control room as the alien fleet moved into position. When the last hegemony ship crossed the invisible line he had marked on his screen, Tom smiled grimly and pressed the activation button. "Fire in the hole," he whispered. Jupiter became a weapon. Gravity fields twisted and bent around the planet as Tom's machines reached full power. Space itself warped and buckled, creating invisible whirlpools that grabbed at anything nearby. The alien ships trying to jump to hyperspace found themselves caught in a maze of gravitational anomalies that tore their hulls apart like tissue paper. Explosions lit up the darkness as dozens of hegemony vessels were destroyed by forces they couldn't understand or fight. Their perfect formations broke apart as ships scattered in panic, trying to escape the gravity storm that surrounded Jupiter. But War Curator Zexhai was not easily defeated. The alien commander quickly realized what the humans had done and ordered his fleet to pull back beyond the gravity field's range. He had lost nearly 200 ships, but he still had overwhelming numbers. Dr. Karen White watched the battle from her laboratory on Earth's moon. Her part of the plan was just beginning. While the human fleet bought time with their lives, she led a team of scientists in a desperate mission to turn the aliens' own weapons against them. "The boarding shuttles are ready," reported Lieutenant Danny Walsh, the young Marine who commanded her security detail. "But I still think this is suicide, Doc." Karen checked her equipment one more time. Her team had managed to capture several intact hegemony ships during the early skirmishes. Now they were going to use those ships to infiltrate the alien fleet and rescue prisoners. "Maybe it is suicide," Karen admitted. "But we've learned something important about these aliens. They've been conquering worlds for so long that they've forgotten how to expect the unexpected. The captured alien ship slipped through the hegemony battle lines without being challenged. To enemy sensors, it looked like just another logistics vessel returning from a scouting mission. Karen and her team wore captured alien suits that hid their human features. They docked with a massive hegemony prison ship that held thousands of beings from dozens of different worlds. Karen's heart broke as she saw the conditions inside. The prisoners were kept in tiny cells, their minds dulled by drugs and electronic implants that suppressed their will to resist. "My God," whispered Dr. Jennifer Miller, Karen's assistant. "What have they done to these people?" "Turned them into slaves," Karen replied grimly. "But we're going to change that." The rescue mission took 6 hours. Karen's team moved through the prison ship like ghosts, using their knowledge of hegemony, technology to disable security systems and free the captives. Many of the prisoners were too drugged to understand what was happening, but others began to wake up as Karen's medical team removed their control implants. One of the freed prisoners was a tall, blue-skinned being who introduced himself as Commander Thexler of the Cathani Republic. His people had been conquered by the hegemony 50 years ago. "You are the humans," Thexler said in broken English as Karen removed the implant from his neck. "We heard stories of your resistance. Many thought it was impossible." "Nothing's impossible if you're willing to fight for it," Karen replied. "Are your people ready to fight back?" Thexler's eyes blazed with an anger that had been suppressed for decades. "We have waited 50 years for this chance. Yes, we will fight." The prison ship became a battleground as the freed prisoners turned on their guards. Karen provided them with weapons taken from the ship's armory, while her Marines held off hegemony security forces. Within an hour, the massive vessel was under rebel control. But their victory was short-lived. War curator HFY had realized that something was wrong and sent a squadron of warships to investigate. Karen watched through the prison ship's viewports as alien fighters approached, their weapons charging for an attack. "All prisoners to escape pods," she ordered. "We've got what we came for." The prison ship exploded in a ball of fire as the hegemony warships opened fire, but not before hundreds of escape pods scattered into space. Many were picked up by human rescue ships, carrying with them freed aliens who were eager to join the fight against their former masters. Back on Earth, Admiral Jack Stone received reports from across the solar system. The first major battle was over, and while humanity had inflicted serious damage on the alien fleet, they were still vastly outnumbered. The hegemony was regrouping near Saturn, preparing for a final assault on the inner planets. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're getting a message from War Curator HFY. He wants to talk." Stone nodded grimly. "Put him through." The alien commander appeared on the main screen, his pale face twisted with anger. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship was filled with smoke and sparks from battle damage. "Admiral Stone," HFY said in his cold musical voice, "you have fought well for primitives, but this resistance is pointless. Surrender now, and your species will be granted favorable integration terms." Stone stood up and straightened his uniform. "War Curator, I have a message for you from the people of Earth. We know what integration really means. We've seen your prison ships and your slave worlds. We know about the implants you use to control your subjects." HFY's expression didn't change. "Order and peace require sacrifice. Your species will learn to appreciate the benefits of hegemony guidance." "No," Stone replied firmly. "We won't. Earth space remains closed to your empire. Any ship that tries to pass through our system will be destroyed. That's not a threat, it's a promise." Captain Steve Miller guided his stealth fighter through the asteroid belt, hunting for more hegemony supply convoys. His squadron had been striking deep behind enemy lines for 2 weeks, hitting fuel depots and communication stations throughout the outer solar system. The aliens were learning that humans could fight dirty when they needed to. "Ghost Leader, this is Ghost 7, came a whisper over his radio. "I've got eyes on a big one. Looks like a command ship heavily escorted." Steve adjusted his course and activated his long-range sensors. There, moving slowly between 2 large asteroids, was a massive hegemony vessel, surrounded by a dozen smaller warships. The ship was different from the others he had seen, covered in communication arrays and sensor equipment. "That's not just any command ship," Steve muttered to himself. That's a control vessel. He had been studying captured hegemony documents for weeks, learning how their empire really worked. The aliens didn't just conquer worlds with military force. They used a network of control ships to coordinate the loyalty implants that kept billions of beings enslaved across the galaxy. All ghost units form up on me, Steve ordered. We're going after that control ship. If we can take it out, we might be able to free some of those enslaved worlds. The attack was swift and brutal. Steve's invisible fighters struck the escort ships first, crippling their engines and weapons before they knew what hit them. Then they turned on the control vessel itself, targeting its massive communication arrays. The ship tried to escape, but human torpedoes punched through its hull and exploded deep inside its core. Steve watched through his sensors as the alien vessel's power systems failed and its communication equipment went dark. Ghost Leader to Earth Command, Steve reported. Control ship destroyed. We're detecting massive signal disruptions across multiple star systems. Far across the galaxy, on worlds that had been enslaved for decades, something miraculous began to happen. The control signals that kept loyalty implants active suddenly went silent. For the first time in generations, conquered beings began to remember what freedom felt like. Dr. Nicole Davis worked frantically in her laboratory as reports poured in from across human space. The destruction of the hegemony control ship had created a chain reaction that was spreading through their empire like wildfire. Enslaved worlds were rising in rebellion, but they needed help to remove the implants permanently. We need to get this technology to as many rebel groups as possible, Nicole told her assistant as she completed work on a portable implant removal device. Every freed world becomes another ally in this fight. She had spent months studying the alien technology, learning how the implants worked, and developing ways to safely remove them. The process was delicate and dangerous, but it was the key to freeing the hegemony slaves. Dr. Davis, her communication officer, called out, "We're getting a priority message from Admiral Stone. The aliens are making their final push toward Earth." Nicole looked up from her work with tired eyes. She had been awake for 36 hours straight, driven by the knowledge that billions of lives depended on her success. How long do we have? Maybe 12 hours before they reach Mars. Orbit. Nicole nodded grimly and turned back to her equipment. She would have to work faster. Meanwhile, Admiral Jack Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship as the battered remains of the human fleet took up defensive positions around Mars. The red planet had been turned into a fortress over the past month, its surface covered with missile batteries and energy weapons. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "the alien fleet is approaching. Sensors show 800 ships remaining under War Curator Zexhi's command." Stone studied the tactical display with a heavy heart. The human fleet had been reduced to less than 50 combat-capable ships. They had fought bravely and inflicted serious damage on the aliens, but they were still hopelessly outnumbered. "Send a message to all ships," Stone ordered. "This is our last stand. Every second we buy gives Dr. Davis more time to finish her work. Every alien ship we destroy is one less weapon pointed at Earth." The battle for Mars began as the hegemony fleet moved into attack formation. War Curator Zexhi had grown tired of human resistance and was determined to crush them once and for all. His remaining ships opened fire on the human defenses with everything they had. The red planet's surface erupted in explosions as alien energy beams struck the fortified positions. But the humans had learned from their previous battles, and Mars itself became their greatest weapon. Hidden missile silos opened across the planet's surface, launching thousands of nuclear warheads at the attacking fleet. Captain Ryan Cross led the last squadron of human fighters in a desperate charge against the alien battleships. His pilots knew they were probably going to die, but they flew anyway, determined to make their deaths count for something. "For Earth!" Cross shouted into his radio as he dove his fighter straight at the bridge of an alien cruiser. "For freedom!" The explosion that followed took out 3 hegemony ships and inspired the rest of the human fleet to fight even harder. But the aliens kept coming. War Curator Zexhi's flagship pushed through the human defenses, its massive guns silencing the Mars missile batteries one by one. The planet's surface was scarred with craters, and the human fleet was down to its last few ships. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, something unexpected happened. New ships began appearing on the edge of the solar system, but these weren't human vessels. They were alien ships from dozens of different species, all flying together under a new flag that showed a broken chain against a field of stars. "This is Commander Thexlar of the Free Alliance," came a voice over the communication system. "Human friends, we have come to help." The freed slaves from across the galaxy had organized themselves into a fighting force and come to Earth's aid. Ships that had once served the hegemony now fought against it, commanded by beings who remembered what freedom meant. The battle turned into chaos as rebel ships engaged hegemony forces throughout the solar system. War Curator HFY found himself fighting on multiple fronts as his own former subjects turned their weapons against him. "Impossible!" HFY screamed at his tactical officers. "How are the slaves coordinating without our control network?" His answer came in the form of Dr. Nicole Davis's voice, broadcast on all frequencies throughout the battle zone. "Because free beings don't need to be controlled to work together. They choose to." Nicole had been busy during the battle, not just perfecting her implant removal technology, but also organizing a galaxy-wide communication network for the rebel forces. Freed worlds were sharing information and coordinating their attacks in ways the hegemony had never seen before. War Curator HFY, Admiral Stone's voice cut through the battle chatter. "Your empire is crumbling. Worlds are declaring independence. Faster than you can stop them. Surrender now and your people will be treated fairly." HFY's image appeared on Stone's main screen, the alien's face twisted with rage and disbelief. Behind him, his flagship's bridge was filled with smoke and sparks from battle damage. "You do not understand," HFY snarled. "The hegemony has ruled for 2,000 years. We brought order to chaos, peace to violence. Without our guidance, the galaxy will tear itself apart." "Maybe," Stone replied calmly. "But that's their choice to make. Freedom includes the right to make mistakes." The communication ended as HFY's flagship took a direct hit from 3 rebel cruisers firing in unison. The massive ship's shields failed and explosions rippled along its hull. But even as his ship died around him, War Curator HFY had one last card to play. Deep in the hegemony's capital system, a massive space station controlled the loyalty, implants of billions of beings across the galaxy. If he could activate a final control signal, he could turn every freed slave back into an obedient servant. "All units," HFY broadcast to his remaining ships, "fall back to the capital. Protect the central control hub at all costs. The rebellion ends now." Colonel Amy Foster received the intelligence report about the control station while coordinating the defense of Earth's moon. The massive structure was heavily defended and located deep in enemy territory. Any attack would be a suicide mission. "I'll lead the assault," Amy told Admiral Stone during their emergency conference. "My people and I have been training for this kind of operation." Stone shook his head. "Amy, it's too dangerous. That station is surrounded by the entire hegemony home fleet." "Which is exactly why it has to be us," Amy replied firmly. "The freed worlds can't risk their only ships on a long-range mission. But Earth can. We've got nothing left to lose anyway." She was right, and Stone knew it. The human fleet had been reduced to a handful of ships, and Earth itself was still under threat. But if they could destroy the control station, they might free billions of beings and turn the tide of the war permanently. "How many volunteers do you need?" Stone asked quietly. Amy smiled grimly. "Give me 50 ships and 500 Marines. That should be enough to get the job done." As Amy prepared her mission, reports continued to pour in from across the galaxy. The rebellion was spreading faster than anyone had imagined. Entire sectors were declaring independence, and hegemony forces were deserting to join the rebels. But the control station remained operational, and HFY was racing to reach it before the humans could stop him. The final battle for Gal. Colonel Amy Foster stood in the cargo bay of her flagship as 50 human ships prepared for the longest journey any Earth vessel had ever attempted. Around her, 500 Marines checked their weapons and equipment one last time. They all knew this was a one-way trip, but not a single person had hesitated to volunteer. "Remember the plan," Amy told her officers. "We punch through their defenses, get a boarding party onto that control station, and destroy it from the inside." The Rebels are counting on us to break those chains once and for all. Lieutenant Danny Walsh, her second-in-command, nodded grimly. What about getting home, Colonel? Amy looked out at the stars through the cargo bay windows. Somewhere out there, Earth was still fighting for its life while billions of enslaved beings waited for freedom. Home is what we're fighting for, Danny. If we succeed, every free world in the galaxy becomes our home. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the solar system behind for the first time in history. Their destination was the hegemony capital, a massive star system protected by thousands of warships and the most powerful space station ever built. War curator HFY reached the capital system 6 hours ahead of the human fleet. His remaining ships took defensive positions around the central control hub, a metal moon that pulsed with the electronic signals that controlled loyalty implants across the galaxy. Inside the station, technicians worked frantically to prepare the final control burst that would turn every freed slave back into an obedient servant. How long until the signal is ready? HFY demanded as he strode onto the station's command deck. 2 hours, War Curator, replied the chief technician, a pale alien with multiple arms. But the power requirements are enormous. We will need to drain energy from the entire home fleet. HFY nodded coldly. Do it. Once the rebellion is crushed, we can rebuild our ships. But if those humans reach this station, 2,000 years of hegemony rule will end. He walked to the massive view screen that showed the space around the capital. Out there, rebel fleets from dozens of worlds were gathering, but they dared not attack the heavily defended system. Only the humans were crazy enough to attempt such a mission. Captain Ryan Cross led the human fleet out of hyperspace at maximum speed, diving straight toward the heart of the hegemony capital. Alarms rang throughout the system as thousands of alien ships moved to intercept them. All units maintain attack formation, Cross ordered over the radio. We only get one shot at this. The space around the capital erupted in explosions as human ships traded fire with hegemony defenders. The aliens had overwhelming numbers, but the humans fought with desperate courage, knowing that the freedom of the entire galaxy depended on their success. One by one, human ships were destroyed by the massive alien defense fleet. But for every ship they lost, the humans pushed deeper into the system, getting closer to their target. Captain Steve Miller's stealth squadron struck from the shadows, their invisible ships appearing just long enough to destroy key hegemony vessels, before vanishing again. His fighters cleared a path through the enemy formation, but the cost was terrible. Ghost leader to all units. Steve's voice crackled over the radio, his ship badly damaged from multiple hits. I'm going in alone. Cover Colonel Foster's approach. Steve's fighter dove toward a massive hegemony battleship, his engines overloading as he pushed them beyond their limits. The explosion that followed when he rammed the alien vessel lit up the darkness like a small star. Colonel Foster's assault ship broke through the final line of defenders and raced toward the control station. Behind her, the last few human vessels held off pursuing aliens, buying her precious time to complete the mission. Boarding party, prepare for assault, Amy ordered as her ship approached the station's docking bay. Remember, we need to reach the central core and plant the charges. No matter what happens to us, that station has to be destroyed. The assault ship crashed through the station's shields and slammed into the docking bay with bone-jarring force. Amy led her Marines through the smoke and wreckage, fighting their way into the station's interior. The inside of the control hub was a maze of corridors and chambers filled with massive computers and control systems. Hegemony guards tried to stop the human assault, but Amy's Marines had trained for this moment their entire lives. Danny, take half the team and secure the power core, Amy ordered as they fought through the station's defenders. I'll head for the central control room. The Marines split up, moving through the alien station like avenging angels. They had seen the prison ships and the enslaved worlds. They knew what the hegemony did to free beings, and they were determined to end it forever. Amy reached the central control room just as the technicians were preparing to activate the final control signal. She kicked down the door and opened fire with her rifle, cutting down the aliens before they could complete their work. Stop. War Curator HFY appeared in the doorway behind her, his own weapon pointed at her back. You do not understand what you are destroying. Without hegemony control, the galaxy will descend into chaos and war. Amy turned slowly to face the alien commander, her rifle still smoking from the firefight. Maybe it will, but that's better than slavery. You are wrong, HFY said coldly. Order and peace require sacrifice. Your species will learn this when we rebuild our empire. No, Amy replied firmly. We won't, because there won't be an empire to rebuild. She pressed the detonator in her hand, setting off the charges that Danny's team had placed throughout the station. The massive structure began to shake as explosions rippled through its core. HFY fired his weapon, but Amy was already moving. She tackled the alien commander as the control room exploded around them, both of them disappearing in a ball of fire and twisted metal. The central control hub died in a burst of light that could be seen across the entire star system. As its signals went silent forever, something miraculous happened throughout the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, the last loyalty implants stopped working. Billions of enslaved beings felt their minds clear for the first time in generations. Captain Cross watched the station's destruction from his damaged ship, tears running down his face. They had done it. Amy and her Marines had broken the chains that bound a galaxy, paying for freedom with their lives. This is Captain Cross to all rebel forces, he broadcast on all frequencies. The control station is destroyed. All beings are free to choose their own destiny. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the galaxy, hegemony ships began surrendering as their crews threw off 2,000 years of conditioning. Entire fleets switched sides, joining the rebellion that had started in Earth's solar system. Dr. Karen White led the medical teams that treated newly freed beings on hundreds of worlds. The process of healing minds and bodies damaged by centuries of slavery would take years, but it was a labor of love that humans eagerly shared with their new allies. The implants are gone, she told a gathering of freed world leaders. But the memories remain. We need to help each other remember what freedom means and how to use it responsibly. 6 months later, Admiral Jack Stone stood in the Great Assembly Hall on Unity Station, watching representatives from over 1,000 worlds sign the Charter of Free Worlds. Earth had become the unofficial capital of a new galactic alliance built on cooperation rather than conquest. We gather today not as conquerors or subjects, Stone said to the assembled delegates, but as free beings choosing to work together for the common good. This alliance is not an empire. No world will be forced to join, and any world may leave whenever it chooses. The charter was signed by representatives of species that had been enemies for millennia, now united by their shared experience of liberation. The document established principles of self-determination, mutual aid, and peaceful cooperation that would guide the galaxy for generations to come. President Robert Hayes visited the memorial wall that had been built on Unity Station, where the IE-DOM names of every human who died in the war were carved in stone. At the top of the wall, in letters that could be seen from across the Great Hall, were the words that had started it all. Earth space is a no-passage zone for tyrants. Below that, in smaller letters, was the motto that had guided humanity through the war. Freedom is not negotiable. Dr. Nicole Davis established the first Galactic Academy on Earth, where young beings from dozens of species learned together about science, philosophy, and the principles of free government. Her students would carry the lessons of the war to every corner of the galaxy. What did we learn from the war? She asked her mixed class of human and alien students. A young Kathani raised her blue hand. That freedom is more powerful than force? That's part of it, Nicole replied with a smile. But the most important lesson is that free beings can accomplish anything when they work together. The hegemony fell, not because humans were stronger, but because we chose to fight for each other rather than ourselves. Years passed, and the galaxy slowly healed from 2 millennia of oppression. Trade routes that had once carried slaves now carried goods and ideas freely exchanged between independent worlds. The hyperspace junction that the hegemony had wanted to control became a symbol of galactic freedom, with ships from hundreds of species passing peacefully through Earth's solar system. Children who had never known slavery grew up in a Gomé